everybody. Welcome to the program. Good to have you here on Hump Day. Karen Read, things looked really good yesterday if you were watching opening day. It always looks so good, right, when the prosecutors start their case. And then along comes Cross. I was watching one of the lead witnesses in the case. And I got to be honest, I started to think it's over. It's over for Karen. This lead witness is saying something really big. Like, Karen Read called me at 5 o'clock in the morning, well before anybody ever found a body, and said, John's dead. And I think maybe a snowplow hit him. How could you possibly know that before you find the body, right? That's why I thought that lead witness, it's over. And then came her defense attorney to wipe the slate clean, shall we say. How would you do that? How on earth would you mount that Everest? I'm going to show you tonight. I'm going to show you exactly what her defense attorney did and why he's probably paid a lot of money and probably for the rest of his practicing days will be paid a lot of money. That's coming. And also, guess what? Tonight, I've got a juror who sat in judgment of Karen Read the first time round. I can't wait to ask him all these questions. So many questions. Like, what did they think? What did they think of Karen Read's voicemail screaming, John, you pervert. Where are you? I'm here with your kids. What did they think of that? Did they think there's an angry woman who killed the guy? Or did they think there's an angry woman who thinks that guy is out there cheating? I'll ask that. Also, it's a bird, it's a plane. It is a speeding missile coming towards the cockpit, and we got to go into defensive mode. That truly happened, except it wasn't a missile. It was more like an I don't know, which in official terms is UFO. Tonight I'm going to show you this simulation of what happened when a Homeland Security crew found a bullet coming at them that had no description, it had no explanation. It looked like this, flying at them to a point where if they didn't make a maneuver, they would have been hit. But it's what happened after this moment that is just now becoming public. And the crew on board also talking for the first time. I'm going to tell you what they said, and it's really jarring. It's jarring what that little football tic-tac did after that moment. You're going to hear that as well. And I have a pro tip for you. This is all being said in jest because I don't recommend anyone drink and drive. But when you are trying to evade the police, it is probably not a good idea to reach out your window and offer them a cocktail like this Florida man did. Roll it, Jamie.
Stop. I'm gonna give you a drink, that's it.
Yeah, he offered them a drink. And then what came next was a high-speed chase, a crash, and a moment where, shall I just say, he needed to be tased. I'm going to tell you everything that happened to that idiot in just a moment, but let's start here. Any day that a defense attorney can catch a prosecution witness saying two different things that really contradict each other, that is what you call a good day. But it is what you call a great day if it happens in a high-profile murder case, and if you're the defendant. Let's take Karen Read, who's on trial for a second time in Dedham, Massachusetts, for allegedly killing her police officer boyfriend. The prosecutors say she hit John O'Keefe with her SUV and then just left him there to die in the snow. And the witness in question today is this woman, Carrie Roberts. She is a friend of that police officer victim. And she testified at Read's first trial as well, and also testified for the prosecution. Here's her story. She says that Karen Read called her at 5 o'clock in the morning, screaming, John's dead. And then followed that with he might have been hit by a snowplow. This is bombshell testimony, people. Because that call, she says, came in way before John's body was ever found lying in the snow. How could she have known John's dead? How could she have known about a snowplow? How could she have known about snow? Really hard to get over this, right? Except if you're that guy. If you are Alan Jackson. On cross-examination, Karen's hotshot defense attorney, Alan Jackson, took this witness down a notch. He pointed out inconsistencies between her grand jury testimony and what she said in court. And it all had to do with what this witness claims Karen Read was saying out loud that terrible morning in the snow. This witness originally told the grand jury that she'd overheard Karen instructing their other friend, Jen McCabe, to Google hypothermia. But as it turns out, on cross, that actually may not have happened.
You painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that.
The answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, and I'm not a trick question, what you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard her, my client, ask anyone to Google anything, did you?
I did not.
And yet that's what you testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
And the reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement, was because someone told you to say it, correct?
Object.
Is that, I'm going to let her answer that.
Nobody told me to say it.
Still, that's rough, right? That is rough. If a defense attorney can point out you said something that you didn't say. That's rough. So there was that today, right? Like wind out of sails, the prosecution. And then a little later in the day, the victim's mom, John O'Keefe's mom, she took the stand for the very first time. Her name is Peggy O'Keefe, and she talked about Karen Read coming over to visit the morning that she'd learned her son was dead. She said Karen didn't offer condolences. Karen didn't offer a hug. Karen has a different description for this. But the prosecutors added that Karen's sole reason for coming over was to get her car the hell out of there, because they say that car was a murder weapon. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to bring in somebody who's following all of this as closely as we are. Annie Elise hosts the true crime podcast Seriously with Annie Elise, and she's here with me live. Annie, thanks for doing this. So first and foremost, let's just go to that moment on the stand where Carrie Roberts was sort of really put to the test by Karen Read's lawyer. I mean, she really did have to admit that she'd said two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting because not only was he seemingly catching her in a lie and that she had perjured herself, but all through cross, he was insinuating that her previous statements to law enforcement were colored by Jen McCabe, the same person who he was now insinuating is the one who instructed her to lie to the grand jury and say that she overheard Karen direct her to Google how long hypothermia, when now she's saying she never heard Karen say that. And I think it's very interesting too, because he brought up, okay, well, when you said that in the grand jury, why did you say the words how long? Because we also know of the infamous Google search, how long to die in the cold. So why would you use those particular words? To which she couldn't answer.
So here's the other thing yesterday when I was watching, and I want to know your perspective in the court, because me, outside of court, I have a very strong feeling about this. Yesterday, it seemed that the prosecution went on at length, laying groundwork with this witness to suggest that she was not friendly with anybody in that house. So if you think she's part of a big old grand conspiracy with all those party goers who, you know, in the defense's view, killed John O'Keefe and then covered it up and framed Karen, the prosecution really wanted to look like this witness is not chummy with those people. Today, once again, that went out the window.
Oh, absolutely. Alan Jackson on cross, she not only was admitting that she and Jen McCabe and some of the others are in constant contact, but it seems like now she and Jen have become best friends since that night in January. And he had alluded to and asked her several times, so would you guys talk before you would make statements to law enforcement? She said yes. They built timelines together. They had conversations, all in preparation for these statements that she gave to law enforcement. And at one point, too, while she was in an interview with law enforcement, Jen McCabe texted her right then and there, too. So again, really inferring that all of her statements and even her testimony isn't that of her own, but more so heavily influenced by Jen McCabe.
And it's for the jury to weigh it, right? To decide how much credibility do I give to this and how much do I not? Okay, so I wasn't sure about this. It's always really hard to watch when a victim's mom gets on the stand and has to answer questions, even from the friendly fire, right? That's the prosecutor asking friendly questions of John O'Keefe's mom. And I watched this as she broke down, and I just thought, oh God, as a mom myself, my heart broke for her. I just didn't understand what this did for the case. Did it do anything, or did it just humanize John O'Keefe?
I think it was meant more as a strategy to humanize him and to also illustrate that this family has just gone through tremendous tragedy and so much loss. And if you pull at the jury's heartstrings that way, of course, that whole courtroom was emotional. Anybody is going to feel emotion during that moment. But what I thought was interesting is after the prosecution had talked with her, for cross, Alan Jackson was like, I just want, I'm sorry for your loss. I don't want to ask you anything, almost to say like, you've gone through enough. You're grieving. I can't imagine this loss, and no further questions.
Yeah. If you're not going to make any points, don't go after a grieving mom. It doesn't do you any good. Okay. Last, real quick. They want to play Karen's words against her in court. And this was what we've been waiting for. This is how trial number 2 is going to be so different from trial number 1. One of these clips is under advisement right now. The judge is going to decide tomorrow. And it's a clip from the Hulu documentary. When I watched it, I thought, ooh, that is not going to be good for Karen Reid if it ever gets played in court. And she's basically imitating that mom that morning when Karen Reid came over and they'd all discovered that John was dead. And the words that she uses, and I'm going to imitate it, was sort of snarly. Hey, looks like you got hit by a car. I mean, she's snarling. Karen is snarling. And, this is not going to play well if the jurors see her that callous towards a grieving mom. But do you think this is going to get in? Like, where are we? Or is it 50-50?
So to my understanding, right now it's 50-50. And the reason why the defense was trying to get this out wasn't even necessarily the clip itself. I think that's a piece of it. But apparently they wanted to play this clip directly after Peggy was on the stand. So you have this very emotional mother who's grieving the loss of her son. And then you play this clip where Karen is seemingly mocking her in a way directly following that. And one of the big things everybody's going after is Karen's behavior. She comes across a little unlikable at times, a little bit callous. And so I think that is where the big problem lied with this. I do believe it's going to be under review, and we'll see if the clip gets in, but it could be a little bit tough for Karen to have that play and everybody see that.
Yep. You really get a view of her hardness, and it's not likable, and you want her to be likable if you're her defense attorney. Annalise, thank you so much for this. We'll call on you again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So if you have followed Karen Reid's trial and then her retrial, even a little bit, you will know that a juror from her first trial, the mistrial, is a lawyer who's now on her defense team. Clearly getting inside that jury's head is a win in itself, which is why I am so excited about my next guest, because he was also a juror in the first Karen Reid trial. Ronald Stanislaw is live with me now. Thank you so much for being with me. I so appreciate this. How did you vote if you don't mind me asking, how did you vote in the first trial?
Voted not guilty on all 3 counts.
You voted not guilty on all 3. What was the breakdown like in the jury room for those for and against? And if you could, tell me also the breakdown of gender.
The breakdown, in general, breakdown of gender, more female than male. And then in terms of the breakdown in terms of, in general, how they were voting, if that's what you're asking, is essentially we were pretty much not guilty on 2 counts. And I guess this is why we're here and we're having this retrial, is because we did not understand the directions very clearly, and that we could individualize or deal with each charge separately. And so we voted for 2 of the charges unanimously not guilty, but one charge we were split on, and that was the manslaughter charge. And that's where
I wanted to ask you, though,
deliberated
if I
for
can,
several
Ronald.
days.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm more curious about the breakdown, men and women, and who voted guilty and who voted not guilty when it came to men and women. What was that split?
I don't know the exact number because we were an uneven number in terms of males and females in the group, but I don't know exactly the exact number. I cannot recall how many females voted versus how many males voted guilty versus not guilty.
So it wasn't palpable that all the women, were voting guilty and all the men were voting not guilty. It wasn't obvious like that.
No, it was not obvious. It was not obvious that, if anything, if I were to guess, and again, I'm not 100% sure because we deliberated on this motion, essentially is that we're about 50-50, if not 40.
Okay, so the other thing I want to do is I want to play a clip of Karen Reid's voicemails that she was leaving that night for John O'Keefe while John O'Keefe was presumably dying in the snow. I'm going to play them and I'm going to ask you a question about them afterwards. So let's roll it.
John, I'm here with your kids. Nobody knows what the you want, pervert. John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit Amy. I need to go home. You are using me right now. You're another girl. Kim's sleeping next to me. You're a loser. Yourself.
Okay, so here's my question, Ronald. When you guys were deliberating the meaning of those voicemails, were you all thinking that's a jilted girlfriend who's angry that her boyfriend is cheating on her, so therefore she could not have killed him? Or were you thinking there's an angry woman who was probably fighting with a boyfriend that she killed that night?
I believe, honestly, that we were split on that, and that some of us believe that it was the rant of an angry girlfriend, jealous girlfriend, and also maybe clearly intoxicated individual. And on the other hand, there was some who probably thought the opposite. So I think that's why we were at a standstill.
Okay, I only have a couple seconds left. I have to make this quick, but have you seen the Hulu documentary about Karen Reid? And if you have, has it changed your opinion at all about voting not guilty?
I think it's changed after that, and no, right? People have ideas after the fact. That's why they couldn't ask us about our vote after the fact as well. So I would not look at it as testimony per se, but it's now left to the new jury to decide ultimately.
Ronald, you were, so I'm out of time, but you were breaking up. Was that a yes or a no that you'd seen the documentary, and a yes or a no that it changed your opinion of anything?
Is a no that I have not seen the documentary and in full, and no, I don't think it's going to change my opinion.
I am so appreciative of your time, Ronald and Stanislaw. Thank you so much, not only for doing your jury duty, but also for being on the show. Thank you for this.
Thank you again so much.
All right, still to come, the other mystery that had to be solved when a body and then another and then another and another and another turned up on a Long Island beach. First, police had to find a killer or killers, but they also had to ID the victims. And tonight, 2 more victims have been ID'd. A mother and a child known for years only as Peaches and Baby Doe. Now they have actual names and histories. But the question remains, were they indeed victims of the Long Island serial killer? That's next. you don't have to have a body to actually convict someone of murder. But if you do, you don't have to know that victim's name. It does, in fact, help without question, but it's true. And since 2010, police on Long Island have found more bodies than suspects on or near Gilgo Beach. They found 10 sets of human remains. 6 of those murders have now been tied to Rex Heuermann, an architect suspected of being the Long Island serial killer. Another alleged victim was found 60 miles away in Southampton, New York. Most, if not all, of Heuermann's alleged victims were sex workers, petite, young women whose remains were found tied up and sometimes wrapped up in burlap. All of them were identified, but 3 of the Gilgo bodies were not. One was a man believed to be Asian. Another was a woman who investigators called Peaches because of a tattoo they found on her chest. Peaches' torso was found in a Rubbermaid bin. That was back in 1997 in a state park 20 miles from where her arms and her legs would turn up 14 years later. That same year, 2011, the remains of her toddler were also found nearby. That toddler was called Baby Doe, little girl. And while we don't yet know who killed those 3 victims, we do know the names of 2 of them. Police today announced that Peaches is Tanya Denise Jackson, a 26-year-old Army veteran and single mom originally from Alabama. She was living in Brooklyn and believed to be working in a doctor's office before she died. Her 2-year-old daughter was Tatiana Marie Dykes. Both were ID'd through forensic genetic genealogy. NewsNation's Laura Ingle spoke exclusively with the retired detective who carried the body of Peaches out of that park 28 years ago and gave her the nickname that stuck with her to this very day.
Were you here when the bin was still here, or did you view the bin?
No, actually, my partner and I carried the bin out.
You carried the bin out of here?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
And put it into the morgue wagon, you know. And then went to the morgue afterwards to see when they opened it up. We didn't open it up here. We opened it up inside the Nassau County morgue. And that's when we discovered that it was, you know, a female torso.
What were the protocols back then for evidence and handling it? Obviously, things are different now with DNA, but what were the protocols like? How did you guys handle that?
Well, we were, you know, of course, you wear gloves and that kind of thing, especially picking up, you know. I mean, all that stuff was allegedly tested for fingerprints. I'm assuming in today's world, DNA.
Right.
We really didn't have a lot of that back then.
That was from Laura Ingle's YouTube channel, The Ingle Edit. Big question now. Were they murdered by the suspected Long Island serial killer, Rex Heuermann? Police say they can't rule it out, but Tanya Jackson doesn't fit his alleged type, and her toddler certainly doesn't either. Laura Ingle joins me now live from Hempstead Lake State Park, where Peaches was found. Hey, Laura, it's really dark there now, but does it feel and look like the perfect dumping ground for not just maybe the Long Island serial killer's victims, but others as well?
Sure. I mean, where I'm standing right now is an entrance to the park, and there's a road that you can see here behind me. And where I did that interview with William Brosnan, the retired detective of Nassau County PD, who carried the bin out of here, he showed me exactly where it was, and it was directly right off of this road. And for the longest time, many of us thought maybe it was in the woods, maybe it was hidden. But he told me and showed us that it was just off the road. So somebody drove through here, probably pretty quick at night. It's very dark, as you mentioned, dropped the bin and off they went. So this is kind of a cut through. The road that you see here behind me that goes through this really massive state park. So sure, it could certainly be the perfect dumping ground. And as we know, 1997, and here we are today finally learning the identity of Peaches, which took so long. And also interesting to note, Ashleigh, I wanted to share with you that Brosnan told me that in that tub that we've been talking about where her torso was found and that Peaches tattoo, that torso was found in multiple plastic bags inside of that bin with a pillowcase and a sheet. And so hopefully there is going to be preserved evidence, right? Because it was in a tub, it was sealed. But obviously investigators have been looking at this for many years, decades, in fact, trying to get to an answer. And that's why one of the reasons why they came forward today to tell us her name, tell us the name of her young baby, just 2 years old. That hopefully somebody will see these images, know these names, and come forward with information that can help lead them to a suspect in this case. And whether or not that's Rex Heuermann, we still don't know.
Yeah, the baby was found next to Valerie Mack, and he is charged with Valerie Mack's murder. So that's sort of curious. But you know, this woman does not fit the profile, and neither does a baby of Rex Heuermann's other alleged victims. What about the dad? This woman does not share the same name as the toddler. The father of the toddler, is he a suspect?
He was mentioned in the press conference today with Nassau County PD and the other investigators. That question was asked and answered. They said they have located him. He is cooperating. But what's interesting, Ashleigh, is that he or anybody else did not report her and the child missing. So that gives us a picture, a snapshot of what may have been happening in this woman's life. A single mom who was moving around. She was an Army vet. We know that she last lived in Brooklyn. She had a couple of addresses in Brooklyn. But I was listening to some people who are talking about this case, and they made note that, you know, she had babysitters. So none of the people that knew them, as far as we can tell, reported them missing. So maybe she had a nomadic lifestyle. We're unsure of that. But again, that's the very reason why there's now a $25,000 reward for anybody who can come forward and provide information in this case. But certainly, Ashleigh, to your point about a baby, I mean, look at that face. I mean, who could do such a thing, right? We haven't had this type of victim in this case. And when you look at Gilgo Beach and you look at Ocean Parkway, I know you have that map. When you take a look at it, end to end, these two victims are the bookends of the victims that were found along Ocean Parkway. Peach's extremities were found furthest to the west, and the toddler was found furthest to the east, right next to Valerie Mack. Now, I also want to point out one other thing that's really important, Ashleigh. Remember that planning document that we heard about during court with Rex Heuermann and the bail document? He had a planning document that allegedly was found on his hard drive in his home. One of the things in the planning document was to remove, destroy tattoos. Peaches was found in 1997. Investigators put that Peaches tattoo on TV for everyone to see. Fast forward to 2000, and this planning document that was allegedly made by Rex Heuermann has a note to self, destroy tattoos. And that is something that did happen with multiple victims.
Sure. It will be fascinating to find out what might be on that pillowcase, though. And might it lead to the father of the baby, or might it lead to Rex Heuermann, or neither? Laura Ingle, great work. Thanks for doing this a late night out at that park. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashleigh.
All right, coming up next, is UFO traffic up these days? Because it sure seems like there are more reports than ever, and more people in positions of authority who are making the reports. Like a Border Patrol flight that went on defense when something bizarre came hurtling towards them and then started tailing them. Now the crew is talking about a close encounter with an unwelcome kind. And that's next. A UFO kind of looks like a light formation in the distant sky, right? That's usually what we think. What they won't say, though, is that a UFO looks like a missile coming right for you in the cockpit. Unless, of course, they are crew members on board a Homeland Security flight over California. Those guys will tell you exactly what they saw, and it sure did not look or act of this world. A year ago, February, they took evasive action when a football-like tic-tac came out of nowhere, heading straight for them. Thinking it was a missile, they duck the aircraft to the left to avoid a head-on collision and like raise the right wing so that the thing could pass right underneath them. And while they reported it right away, they did not talk about it publicly until now. Here is an animated recreation of the sighting with the actual audio of the encounter attached.
Troy 2-1, go ahead.
It's not weird, but I just had something pass underneath my wing, maybe like a football-sized object right underneath our wing.
Troy 2-1, Roger. Do you think it was a drone or?
I have no idea. I got my sensor operator looking for it on the camera right now. We'll see if we can find it. But it's like a dark gray cylindrical object, and it was probably the size of a football, and it passed maybe 10 feet under our right wing.
Troy 2-1, Roger. Thank you for the report. Keep me advised if you find anything else out.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll look for it now.
We got that animation from Ben Hansen, who's the host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus. The people on that plane vouched for that animation, saying that is exactly what the incident looked like. Ben just interviewed a crew member, and Ben is here with me now live to talk about it. Holy cow. Wow, Ben, first of all, kudos to you for getting a crew member to talk, because that's one of the hardest things in this whole mystery, right, is to get somebody who's an actual witness to describe it, especially a reliable witness like these guys. But it's amazing that they described what they saw as thinking it was a surface-to-air missile.
Yeah, so it was actually that first NewsNation breaking news that we did with you that got them to connect with me. And I wanted to verify, because there is no video actually of this. They did try to attempt to video this with a camera that sits underneath the nose and the belly, but they didn't have time. I mean, this thing basically came at them at a 1 or 12 o'clock position and first appeared as a glint, like a flash. And then in an instant, the pilot had looked down at what they call the TCAS, which is their scope that tells them other air traffic in the area, didn't see anything, looks back up. And within that about 2 seconds, the thing has closed the distance so quickly that he instinctively reacts. In his mind, he's thinking someone is shooting a surface-to-air missile at us. So he takes evasive action.
Okay, so then the next thing that's fascinating about that video, if we were to play the whole thing out long, is that these pilots are communicating with the ground and saying, this thing turned around and started coming back for us. That's my very inarticulate way of describing it. But tell me what they said happened when the thing, the tic-tac, whatever it is, came back for them.
So forgive the crudity of the model, but I didn't have time to have my animator redo the video. So here we have a model that's not the real plane, right, the type, but it's flying along. And as this tic-tac is a jelly bean, actually, is heading towards them, they instinctively turn off the autopilot. So this sets off an alarm, instantly wakes up all the crew, what's going on, and banks to the left. Okay, so he pops up this wing enough because he thinks he's in a collision with this object. It passes, he believes, either directly under him or slightly off. It continues on behind them. So he gets the sensor operator involved, and they have a very sophisticated radar on board. See if you can find this thing. Well, that's where they believe they tracked an object, their same altitude, 20,000 feet, 60 miles behind them. In a couple of seconds, that object then jumps to about 20 miles closer to them, back to 30 or 40, and then again to 10. It's like it's playing hopscotch back and forth, and they have no idea what this is.
So obviously I think most important question here would be, how did this crew member react, and what have they done with this information since, and how were they received delivering the news about what they went through?
Well, first of all, as we always say, in incidents like this, it is a safety of flight issue, and that's why they called LA Center, the air traffic control, to report to them what just happened. Right? They did their best to try and document, to try and record this thing. They're really concerned about it. It doesn't make sense that over California you'd have a surface-to-air missile coming at you, but instinctively, I've been flying as a pilot, and I've had like a bird come towards my wing and pop that wing up really quick so I don't collide with it. That's a concern. Nobody should be flying at 20,000 feet unidentified, and this object had no means of visible propulsion. There was no smoke, no streak, no anything as it passes by. So how is it flying, and how is it going several times the speed of sound? And then hopping back and forth. It reminds us of the Navy Tic Tac video in 2004, right? And they described that on radar covering 60 miles in mere seconds. So same, California coastline, same kind of description, a lot of similarities. Everyone's baffled about it. And we're hoping that officials take this seriously and look into it.
Well, like I said, you can't get a more reliable witness than a crew from Homeland Security pilots who literally had to protect themselves against it in terms of reporting. You and I are not finished talking about this, and methinks you're going to be coming back because I want to ask you a few things about the Vatican. And now that the Pope has passed, whether we might be starting to get some more information from the Vatican, but that's for another day. Will you come back?
Sure will. Yep, we're following the story closely.
It's so weird. I didn't know there was a connection between UFOs and the Vatican, but what do you know? There is. Ben Hansen, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashleigh.
All right, coming up, 2 reasons why police need to cross their T's and dot their I's every time they get a warrant. First, the Constitution requires it. And then second, some of the worst people on earth can get away with murder if cops drop the ball. Case in point, the man accused of raping and strangling a 13-year-old named Madeline Soto in Florida. He says police rummaged through his phone without a warrant or permission. So does it sink the case against him? That's next. Mayo Clinic doctor accused of poisoning his wife. A doctor who may well be acquitted now that a judge has thrown out most of the evidence against him. And why would a judge do that? Because of the search warrants. They were apparently overly broad and not specific enough. So most of the stuff the cops found on his devices, like Googling for poison and deleting his searches, that stuff's all gone in the trash. And tonight, another case just like it. Only this time, a more famous case. Stephen Stearns, who's about to stand trial in Florida for the murder of his ex-girlfriend's 13-year-old daughter last year. Her name is Madeline Soto. And police say that Stearns molested her for years before allegedly strangling her and dumping her body on the side of a country road. Apart from murder, he is charged with sexual battery and possession of child sex abuse material based on photographs allegedly found on his phone. But just like the Minnesota doctor's case at the Mayo Clinic, Stearns wants the phone evidence thrown out. Because unlike the cops in Minnesota, the Florida cops did not even get a search warrant. At all. But the prosecutors say doesn't matter. They say Stearns gave detectives verbal consent more than once and had obviously tried to cover his digital tracks. For what it's worth, Stearns was not under arrest at that point, and prosecutors do have other evidence against him, so watch this space. Coming up, if you steal liquor from a convenience store, maybe don't offer the passing police officers a cocktail.
Stop. Stop. I'm gonna give you a drink, that's it.
A Florida man strikes again, and let's just say the end of the chase is something to behold, folks. Another don't do this moment. Back in a moment. Right? Big smile, sunny outlook, that can overcome just about anything, right? Maybe not. Maybe not exactly. And Richard Christopher Smith might now agree with what I'm saying if he weren't locked up in Florida for allegedly ripping off a liquor store and leading police on a high-speed chase. When the cops first arrived, Smith offered them a can of vodka spritzer. That was after circling the store that he was allegedly robbing in his minivan. They declined the drink, probably wise, and then he took off fast, and that's when things got ugly. But you wouldn't know it from the way the suspect casually enjoyed a cigarette after wrecking out his ride and accepting his fate. Naturally, all of this was caught on body cam, and it tells a better story beginning to end. So take a look.
Stop. Stop. I'm gonna give you a drink, that's it. He's drinking some, looked like a beer or something. He just drove by. He's back towards, I believe, Lakeview.
Show me your hands now! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground now! Put your hands behind your back!
A lot of stupid right now.
You guys had fun though, right?
That last line was my favorite. I hope you caught it. You guys had fun though, right? No, that is not fun for the police. FYI. Smith has zero fun actually in his immediate future because he is charged with aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, resisting arrest, DUI, and petty theft. And right now he's sitting pretty with a bond that's $120,000. So, no, it's not fun. Thanks everybody for watching tonight. Good to have you here with me on a Wednesday night. We are over hump day, okay? So we'll be back here.